We all know that The Simpsons is a colossal TV show that has had so many great seasons and episodes over the years, as well as an almost unmatched impact on popular culture. Check out my video on the top 20 Simpsons episodes if you want any proof of that. But it's not all great. As someone who was mad enough to go and review every single episode of this show, trust me when I say that there was a lot of garbage along the way, especially in the newer seasons. So in this video, I'm gonna take you through what I consider to be the 10 absolute worst episodes from the show. A disclaimer though, it is just my opinion, so if you enjoy any of these episodes, then more power to you. I'm glad you were able to get something out of them, which I wasn't. Also, please feel free to tell me about it in the comments. If you want to defend any of these episodes, I would be glad to hear your argument about why I'm wrong. All I'm doing here is going back through the series and finding the 10 episodes which annoy me the most, and all of these episodes bothered me in some way. Anyway, without further ado, number 10 is Season 10, Episode 8, Homer Simpson in Kidney Trouble. This is Homer at his absolute worst. His actions in this episode seem more akin to Peter Griffin than Homer Simpson. I will show why later, but in the interest of fairness, I do want to touch on the opening set piece first. The trip to the old western town was decent, some good tourism jokes, and some good observations about the past. It's very much in the style of a season 10 to have this type of intro, but as soon as they jump in a car to go home, things fall off a cliff. Grandpa needs to go to the toilet, but Homer won't let him. Okay. But they keep showing Abe begging and begging to go, and Homer is having none of it. The episode couldn't be making it more clear that Homer is the one who caused Abe's kidney to burst, which isn't exactly medically sound by itself, but honestly, that's the least of this episode's problems. Taking into account the fact that The Simpsons is not usually in the business of dark humor or making its main characters incredibly unlikable, it's very curious why they chose to have Homer be responsible for Abe's life-threatening condition. I mean, if they wanted to do this type of emotional story, they had a ready-made template. Just have Abe's injury happen by itself, and have Homer be the one to bravely step up and give him the kidney. That seems to be the more obvious route to go down, and I'm baffled why they didn't, because it would have made Homer's later hesitance much more understandable, and using that format, you could maybe even make him running away work. Instead, because of the way it's presented in the episode, when Homer runs away and leaves Abe to die, you have nothing but contempt for this man. And he does it not once, but twice. It's all too much. They try to salvage it with Homer getting a car dropped on him, which allows Dr. Hibbert to steal his kidney without his knowledge. I don't know whether this was meant to be an attempt at a dark ending, or whether it was supposed to be Homer getting his comeuppance, but either way, by that point, I was too done to care. Despite all of Homer's likability problems, what really solidified this episode's place in my bottom 10 was the Act 2 boat scene. That is a contender for the most pointless Simpsons scene of all time. Homer goes to get lectured by a bunch of lost spirits, and supposedly has an epiphany. Not only was that scene boring, and sucked any fun out of an already unfunny episode, it was rendered completely pointless by the fact that Homer ducks out of the operation for a second time anyway. My god, I hate that scene, and I hate this episode. In at 9, we have Season 12, Episode 17, Simpson Safari. As much as I dislike out-of-place, unlikable characterizations, or stories with unfortunate implications, as you will find out in this list, episodes which are just plain boring, I hate every bit as much. Honestly, this felt like some of the worst aspects of the HD era, 80 years before the HD era even existed. The opening set piece, with the Bag Boy strike and animal crackers, despite just being a bland setup for the trip to Africa, was the best bit of the episode. That tells you all you need to know. You get the impression that the writers had this travel episode in mind, but didn't know what to do with it, because once the family got to Africa, any sense of a plot went out of the window. They could have used this opportunity to show off some African culture, or have the Simpsons react to it, instead of what they did, which was slow things down to a snail's pace. As the family wander around the plains, jokes without any subtlety are the way here, like the infamous warthog in the car, Marge looking at a cheetah through binoculars, which, oh no, was actually right next to her. Then you have the Coral casual get-together one, and the random bit of a giant spider. It's just not good. In fact, just as I was about to nod off to sleep in Act 3, the episode decides to desperately try and add some interest into the plot. You could be forgiven for thinking that the family helping endangered chimps was a good thing, but in reality, the whole thing turned into a farce. The chimps were being made to mine for diamonds by this crazy woman, in a plot twist which made no sense whatsoever. Then, for the ending scene, it's implied that the family took the bribe of the diamonds and just went quietly on their way. I'm sorry, what? Not only does that make zero sense for characters like Lisa and Marge, this farcical ending in general did not fit the tone of the episode. So yeah, this episode managed to somehow have the worst of both worlds. It was simultaneously incredibly boring, while also having a nonsense ending, which actively pissed me off. This was an absolute chore to sit through. In at number 8 is Season 21, Episode 16, The Greatest Story Ever Doed. Step right up, the most annoying Simpsons episode of all time, step right up. Man, this was a pain. For a start, the plot was a mess. It was just the usual lazy travel story. There wasn't much build up to them going to Israel. Just Homer needed to be saved. That's pretty much it. Once they get to their destination, all potential of exploring the area was squandered, as basically nothing happens. Above all of this though, there are two characters here which make this episode bad enough to make this list. First is Homer. He is full on jerk-ass mode here, being horrible to Ned throughout. Sure, he doesn't have to like what Ned likes, or even share his beliefs, but we know how much this trip means to Flanders. Yet Homer still goes out of his way to spoil it for him. The way he decides to have a sleep on the tomb, as Flanders was trying to have a moment, was just so irritating. And he does things like this constantly through the episode. The ending again is a farce, with Homer and then everyone else suffering from heat stroke and claiming to be the Messiah. It added nothing, and was a silly way to take a story which seemed to be about Homer and Ned's relationship. The only joke I found remotely funny was Homer's over-the-top "look upon me and shudder," only because it's the type of ridiculous, egotistical remark that kind of suits him. The ending scene, however, where Ned forgives Homer so easily, is kind of insulting. I mean, he had every right to tell Homer off and have nothing to do with him ever again. Instead, he continues to allow himself to get walked over like a doormat. That works okay for one-off jokes, not so well when it's the final message of your episode. Let's talk about the second, and perhaps most important reason why this episode sucks. The tour guide. Guys, I'm not exaggerating. I think he's the most annoying character in the history of the show. His only purpose is to shout gibberish and basically be the most incompetent tour guide of all time. It would be barely tolerable if he only appeared once, but he keeps coming back. He gets an absurd amount of screen time. God, he's annoying. I mean, what even is his purpose? Why do they insist on bringing him back in so many scenes? As you can tell, I find this episode incredibly frustrating. I don't have anything else to say about it. Number 7 is Season 26, Episode 1, Clown in the Dumps. So the problems here started before the episode even begun, and I'm not talking about that incredibly long couch gag. You see, there was this big advertising push, like tune in to the premiere of Season 26, where a major Simpsons character will die. It was billed like that at the time. So imagine how disappointing it was when Krusty's father was the one who was killed off. Not only is he not a main character, he wasn't even a secondary character on the show. For the most part, he was completely irrelevant. So basically, the episode was a big lie, based off false advertising, to try and drum up ratings. Now I'm hearing you say, that doesn't necessarily mean the episode itself was bad. It could still have been good, right? Well, yes, it could have been, but it wasn't. The episode itself was just as bad as the build-up. Krusty's big takeaway of his father's death was worrying that his dad never found him funny. Now we all know that the rabbi never really approved of Krusty's job, so I don't know why Krusty was so hung up on it here. The end result of it all is that he quit show business, only to get back into it in the end. We have seen that plotline a million times before, so why on earth they felt the need to shove it in here, I have no idea. They could have used this as a real learning opportunity for Krusty to reflect, to deal with his loss and grief in the right way, and maybe even get his life back on track. Instead, it all felt so shallow, and I got a sense of malaise watching it. The Homer-Lisa subplot had potential. After witnessing Krusty lose his dad, Lisa becomes worried that she could lose her own, so she literally wraps Homer up in bubble wrap in an over-the-top reaction to try and keep him safe at all times. Minus the bubble wrap stuff, it's relatable enough, right? The problem was, there was hardly any time devoted to it, and the ending message felt almost disrespectful to me. Lisa figures out that the main reason why she cared so much about her dad's safety was that she wanted to feel in control of the situation, or at least not feel out of control. Now you might argue that can be realistic to some extent, but it still feels wrong to care more about your own feelings than the well-being of your dad. I don't know, this episode just annoyed me on a personal level, more than most I think, probably because my dad has passed away, so I've gone through all that. And I feel this was a major missed opportunity to offer a good message about dealing with grief, and more than that, just life advice in general. Instead, this episode keeps fumbling it, and I can't imagine it would be of much use to anyone. Oh, and once again, there were no jokes here which made me laugh, so a boring episode to boot. In at number 6 is Season 23, Episode 22, Lisa Goes Gaga. You know what? I'm not going to waste too much of your time with this. This episode had to be in the bottom 10, but there's not much else I can say on top of what the numerous people who have talked about this episode have already said. Essentially, the show sacrificed all of its identity, and frankly its dignity, to make the entire thing about Gaga, and not even in a self-deprecating, poking fun kind of way. In a make every joke about her, constantly talk about how great she is, and have her solve everything in the end, that kind of way. It's just too much. This kind of celebrity worship is not healthy in general, in my opinion, but it also goes against what this show originally stood for. That in a nutshell is the episode's main problem. Lisa's characterization is a little off as well, accepting Lady Gaga as a saviour pretty much in the end. Lisa should be thinking for herself really, and it's not like Gaga offered her any great wisdom, just a cliché speech and a cheesy song. By that point though, I was too done with the episode to care. As I said, there are loads of videos out there of people talking more in depth about why this one sucks, but to me it's pretty self-explanatory. The show treated the guest star as more important than the show itself. Believe it or not though, this is not even the worst example of this phenomenon in the series. That honour goes to Season 26, Episode 12, The Musk Who Fell to Earth, which takes the 5th spot on the list. Yes, this does suffer from the same problems as Lisa Goes Gaga, in that it treats Musk almost like a godlike figure that is coming down to save us mere mortals, with his amazing creativity and AI innovations. Now I could get into a bit of a rant about Elon Musk, and specifically Neuralink, but I'm gonna refrain from stuff which could be considered political. Let's just stick to why this is so bad. Firstly, there is no kind of structure here. They spent 2 minutes doing one thing, then another 2 minutes doing something else, and there's no flow to any of it. Now, I don't typically get too technical and say that an episode must be structured in a set way, because unorthodox pacing can work if done right, but there needs to be a set goal in mind. But here there doesn't seem to be. 1 minute Musk is spending time with Homer, the next with Burns, then Mr. Burns is trying to have Elon assassinated in one of the most underwhelming endings of all time. It's so bland and pointless. Elon Musk himself doesn't help with the blandness. He's clearly not cut out to be an actor, because he delivers his lines with all the charisma of a wet blanket. It's the reason I rank this slightly below Lisa Goes Gaga, because as self-indulgent as she is, at least Gaga is an entertainer at heart, and as such brings some level of energy to proceedings. So on that basic level, I think Musk fits the show even less than her. So yeah, this was just as much of a vanity project as Lisa Goes Gaga, but was slightly duller, so for that reason, it cracks the bottom 5. Coming in at number 4, the episode Love is a Many-Splintered Thing, Season 24, Episode 12. To truly understand the depths of this episode's nonsense and how bad it is, I first need to provide you with a little context about the character Mary. You see, she is one of Cletus's kids, and formerly Bart's girlfriend, slash almost wife. Yeah, don't ask about that. The first episode she appeared in was Season 17's Apocalypse Cow, which was okay. The second episode she appeared in was the first episode of Season 24, Moonshine River, which is also one of my least favourite episodes. That episode has Bart chasing Mary all over New York, and it ends with the realization that they can't be together. So with all that said and done, it's surely time to put all this behind us, right? Wrong. Mary is brought back 11 episodes later to have another on and off relationship with Bart, making that earlier episode pointless as well as bad. So yeah, this episode was on incredibly shaky ground with me right from the start. As ever though, I tried to be as objective as possible, so I gave the episode a chance to surprise me, and it did. It was far worse than I ever could have imagined. For a start, there is some narration by Bart, which felt totally out of place. There seems to be a trend of bad Simpsons episodes, having random narration. Let's talk characters, shall we? Bart is unlikable, because he says he wants to be with Mary, but refuses to take any notice of her interests, and outright ignores her at times. How am I meant to get on this kid's side when he doesn't seem bothered himself? I mean, I personally don't really care for this stuff anyway. Bart having girlfriends, and caring only about girls, is already too overdone in the HD era. But if they are going to do this type of episode, they need to commit to it. There's simply no point in this premise if Bart doesn't take it seriously. If the characters in a show don't care, then you can be damn sure that the audience won't. They also tried to jam in a Homer and Marge marriage crisis, which is literally one scene of them having a mild argument slash disagreement. They tried to make the connection like, oh, Homer was treating Marge like Bart was treating Mary, but we don't see enough evidence of that in this episode for it to work. You can't even use the pre-existing relationship between those two characters to sell it either. If anything, that works against you, because Homer and Marge have had worse arguments than this so many times over the years. So because of this, when Marge literally kicks Homer and Bart out of the house, it makes her seem like the unreasonable one more than them. After that scene, Homer and Bart then spend the next 5 minutes before the finale staying at a hotel watching British movies in one of the more boring sequences ever on the show. Then we get to the insulting ending. Despite not even being in the wrong, Homer is forced to give a grovelling apology to Marge. It works for him because, as always, Marge takes him back. But Bart is not so lucky, as Mary goes off with another boy instead. At least it's kind of lucky for the audience, as it means that we never have to endure Mary in a meaningful role ever again. Now, I know most people probably won't have this episode on their worst list, certainly not this high up, as it's not necessarily one which jumps off the page, but it just hit all the wrong notes with me. It represents all of the HD era's worst aspects. A reused plotline, tick. Unlikable characters, tick. Bart's only trait being girls, tick. Boring filler periods, tick. A lack of any decent jokes, tick. An unsatisfying ending, tick. Put simply, this episode is one of the main reasons I originally quit watching the show after season 24, and for that reason alone, I will always have a special dislike for it. Taking the bronze medal of bad is season 15, episode 15, Codependence Day. The first episode on the podium of shame is, spoilers, also the only non-HD episode in the bottom 5, and the main reason it gets that position is that it makes a farce out of probably the most important thing on the show, that being Homer and Marge's relationship. Going back and watching this episode again for this review has only reinforced my opinion that this episode in particular did more damage to their relationship than any other. Let's start with some semblance of positivity though. Much like Homer Simpson in Kidney Trouble, this has a decent opening set piece. This was the teen seasons after all. The Star Wars parody hits the obvious notes, but it does so in a way everyone would get, using Comic Book Guy as the stand-in for the outraged Star Wars fans at the time. Was quite a clever idea, I thought. Then Homer and Marge go on a drinking spree together, which with a rewrite could have worked potentially, but any hope this had was gone when Homer frames Marge for DUI. Obviously that's so bad. Divorce territory by itself if we're going to get real for a second. It's every bit as bad as what he did to Grandpa in the kidney episode, only it hits harder here because we are supposed to care much more about the Homer-Marge relationship than the Homer-Grandpa one. The scene doesn't even work from a structural perspective because it happens towards the end of Act 2. They gave themselves so little time to resolve such a serious issue, it's no wonder they messed it up. But even putting that inexplicable scene aside, this is still portrayed as a realistic take on how alcohol and codependency can ruin not just a relationship, but people's whole lives. Marge clearly has an addiction problem, which we have seen before with her gambling addiction, and Homer is being a bad influence on her, which we have seen many times on the show. The problem here is those two are completely different plot lines, and they each need to be handled with care. This episode takes both of them and tries to mash them together, and I think that's why we got the ending we did here. It was a muddled mess that didn't know what it wanted to be. I can sense some self-awareness from the writers as well, about how bad this actually is. Homer does even say that he hit a new low after all, so they clearly know they're dealing with a serious issue, yet still treat it like a farce for the ending. After Homer and Marge both get drunk in the rehab center, no, I'm not making that up, Homer makes some empty promises to Marge, and that's it. All is forgiven. We'll see you next week, folks. And no, this wasn't even a bad attempt at dark humor, because the Homer and Marge moment, where they stare at each other lovingly for a few seconds, was played straight. They really thought this worked as a happy ending. Well, I'm here to tell you it didn't. The only thing it worked for was trivializing alcoholism and exposing Homer and Marge's relationship as a toxic mess. And that's about the worst thing you can do, not only for those characters, also for the show as a whole. But hey, at least they made fun of George Lucas. Taking the silver medal of bad is season 23, episode 12, Moe Goes from Rags to Riches. Maybe most people wouldn't have this episode as far down, but come on, this is literally a plot about Moe's bar rag coming to life and telling us its story. Why not have Marge's necklace give its life story? Or maybe Bart's skateboard can share its tale of the road. There you go, Simpsons writers. I have just given you 2 episode ideas. Where's my paycheck? In all sincerity, this isn't fully the writer's fault. This episode is just a symptom of the show being on the air for so long. After 23 years, they clearly started to run out of ideas. But it still doesn't make it any less frustrating for the viewer. What this comes down to, more than anything, is just the boredom I felt watching it. Everything is like, why is this happening? They never give you any kind of reason to care. I don't mind them trying new things, but there has to be a clear plan behind it. There clearly wasn't one in place here, and the pacing and focus was all over the place. This somehow had all the worst aspects of those Simpsons trilogy episodes without having any of the good bits, like an interesting setting, or jokes of any kind. The brief trips out of the Rags flashback were no better. We get some dumb character stuff with Moe, where he laments not having a real friend, so he instead clings to his bar rag. This makes him look a bit pathetic, to be honest, and I would have rather this be removed entirely. Oh, and there was a Bart and Milhouse subplot, which I almost forgot about, but it was nothing. Seriously, there was nothing there. I think the main reason why this is so high on this list is that, unlike most of the other episodes on this list, I couldn't find a single thing I enjoyed here. I mean, I guess Jeremy Irons' performance as the Rag was okay, but that's about all I've got. I honestly couldn't even finish this in one sitting, it was that dull. Never has a Simpsons episode made me feel like I was wasting my time, and my life, more than this. Most boring episode ever. So it's here, what I consider to be the worst Simpsons episode of all time is Season 27, Episode 1, Every Man's Dream. Every Man's Nightmare, as I like to call it. First things first, much like Clown in the Dumps, this one told us lies, told us sweet little lies. For the second season in a row, the premiere was hyped up and advertised as this big deal, only this time the hook wasn't a main character dying, it was supposedly Homer and Marge finally breaking up. And you know what, if they actually had the balls to do that, I may not have agreed with that decision, but I could have at least respected it. But spoiler alert, this did not have the decency to follow through on what was advertised, which I will expand on when I get to the ending. The journey to get to the ending wasn't much better, because this managed to achieve what I thought was the impossible. It simultaneously felt like it was dragging on, while at the same time, absolutely nothing was happening on screen. Minutes drifted by, with Homer doing nothing but feeling sorry for himself, when it was his behaviour to Marge which caused them to split up. Then he met a young woman named Candice, and they began dating because the therapist advised Homer and Marge to see other people. If Homer and Candice's drug trip together wasn't weird enough, what about the contrived plot point that Marge is dating Candice's dad and they all end up meeting each other at a restaurant on a double date? Truly sitcom levels of nonsense here. Just as Homer begins regretting losing Marge forever, he wakes back up in the therapist's office. It's revealed that he dreamed the whole thing, and none of it actually happened. Wait, what's that? That bit was the dream, and he's actually still with Candice. Wait, what's that? It was all fake? And it was all actually Marge's dream, while she was in her bed all along? You know where this is going. Wait, what? It was all a dream of some random guy, and then it just cuts to black? Forget this being by far the worst Simpsons ending in history, which it is. This was, without hyperbole, one of the worst endings I've ever seen in fiction. I literally couldn't understand what was going on the first few times I saw it, and sadly I have had the misfortune of seeing it numerous times, including of course for this review, and every time I expect it to be not quite as bad as I remember, but every time it shocks me with how incomprehensibly bad it is. First, as I said, it's legitimately hard to understand unless you are paying really close attention. Second, makes the entire episode pointless, as none of it actually happened, which makes the whole advertising of Homer and Marge breaking up for good a total lie, because the whole thing was non-canon anyway. It's hard to imagine how they could have actually made this ending worse. Maybe if the screen just went blank for a minute, and then a middle finger was shown to the audience. But even that could arguably be better, purely because of how memorable it would have been. Now that I've got it over with for this video, I never plan to see one single second of this episode again. There's nothing redeemable about it. It stinks. So there you go guys, that covers my least favourite episodes of The Simpsons. Unlike my previous best episode list, where I included 20, I only did 10 this time around. However, if you guys really want, I could do another worst episode video, where I go over the next 10, which didn't make this list. I already know what they are, because I had to decide between the 1 rated episodes in the process of making this video, so it'll be easy enough to do. Just let me know if you want to see it. Also let me know your thoughts in the comments about these episodes, and feel free to leave your own lists too. I always enjoy reading them, and getting even a small idea of the fanbase's perception. But that's me done now for this particular video. Please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and with that said, I'll leave you for now. Take care guys.